Pistons basketball is officially back tonight in Chicago with Detroit playing their first game against the Bulls. We'll preview that game and discuss whether or not fans should be concerned about the Pistons and Jaden, Ivey and Jalen Duren not coming to an extension agreement. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Before we get to previewing Detroit's first game against the Bulls tonight, which I'm really excited for, I wanted to take a few minutes to just go over all the kind of fallout from Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey not signing extensions with the Pistons or not coming to an agreement. And I wanted to take a look at some of the other deals that got done for other players in their class to get a feel for not only what the market was sort of dictating potentially for JD and Ivey, but potentially some numbers for what these two could be looking to sign next summer. Before I pull up that though, I wanted to just say Mark Stein reported that Jalen Duren was reportedly after $30 million annually. Whether that was a 4 or 5 year deal, I couldn't find that out. But we kind of threw that number out a couple of days ago, but I was just saying that as like a ballpark figure of what I thought he might be after. But that was backed up, or not backed up from me, but Mark Stein reported that. So a little bit surprising. I thought JD might have been a little bit more close to 25 million. I threw out 30 million because that's was kind of seemed like the max for what he could get with what he's achieved in his career. So I guess you're always going to go for the max and come down a bit, but maybe the Pistons were only offering around that 20 million. So JD and his camp didn't want to come down to that potentially. And that's led to this outcome. So Jaden Ivey, with the injury and with the last season and the injury this preseason, it felt almost like it was going to be an absolute shock for him to sign an extension. Duren, I thought, might get done, but hearing about what him and his camp were after, I'm not surprised. So I wanted to pull up here a list of some of the first round picks from the 2022 draft class and the extensions they signed, just so we can get a feel for what the market was looking like and potentially what our two Pistons could be looking to sign next summer. And as you can see here, there's 9 players on this list, and there's a couple more I will mention, but I wanted to just quickly highlight Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams. They all signed maxes, so I'm taking them off the list because I do think there is a world where Duren and Ivey make an all-star team or two in their career, but I think those 3 aforementioned players are clear all-NBA talents that I would love if our two Pistons can get to that level, but I think they're just in a class of their own. The players I really want to focus on here are Jabari Smith, Dyson Daniels, Christian Braun, and Keegan Murray to a lesser extent. Because when you look at Smith, Daniels, and Braun, each of those players signed for roughly $25 million a season. And I think if Jaden Ivey had been healthy last year and contributed to the Pistons' playoff run, I just want to reiterate, I think the team still would have played a similar way if he was healthy, but because he wasn't there, you don't have that data of him and Cade working. But say if Ivey had have played, I think Ivey probably would have signed something for 4 years, 100, 5 years, 125, around 25 million. I feel like Ivey probably would have, with the way the market looked this summer, probably signed for something like that if that was on the table, which leads me to think he was probably offered less because if I'm just being honest, when you look at Dyson Daniels and Christian Braun in particular, I think what those two have proven in their career so far to contribute to winning basketball, what they bring defensively and offensively, they're different players clearly. But I think for them to sign for $25 million, probably, I think you would say they've proven more in their NBA career than Jaden Ivey and are better than him right now. I think JI has a higher potential than both of them. I think JI has a higher potential than Jabari Smith Jr., Keegan Murray, but I think just with what they've proven to date in the data, I think Braun and Daniels getting 25 million probably says that like Ivey's probably right now between that 15 to 18, 20 million annually per year. I feel like that's what the Pistons probably looking to offer him. And I feel like Ivey, similarly to Duren, was probably looking for more that 30 million per year because he does have that potential. But I think this is where JI's, injury sucks. And I don't want to repeat myself from last episode, but I think he's, like I said, probably in that range of 15 to 20 million annually. And I think he's trying to bet on himself and push right up to that 30 million annually next summer in what's hopefully a different restricted free agency market than what it was this summer. But I think what we saw this past summer is more a reflection of the way the second apron and the way that the cap structure right now, that's a reflection in terms of teams not just throwing out 30 million per year or max deals for rookie extensions like they have in the past. And I think Jalen Duren, whilst there's no real big man on here outside of Chet, and like I said, he's in a different tier. I think Jalen Duren, like I said, he's looking for around 30 million. But I think I feel like this is just an assumption, but I feel like he would have signed for something that was 25 million if that's what the Pistons are offering. I feel like the Pistons are probably offering around that 20 mil a year once again. And I think their argument might have been in terms of the consistency. JD was exceptional from, I want to say, mid-January onwards last year and showed major strides at both ends, especially once he was locked in with his motor. But I think he needs to show a full year this year that that's the real him. And it looks like it so far in the limited preseason. But I think each of these guys are probably going to try and push for something around 30 million annually. And I think what they're worth right now with the way this cap is, they're probably around $16 to $20 million players annually. But maybe JD's a little bit higher than Ivy right now because of what he was able to do on the playoff team. But those are just my thoughts. The other names I wanted to throw out were Aaron Naismith, starting small forward on the finals-bound Pacers, or the team that made the finals. He just signed for 2 years, 40 million, so only 20 million per year for him. I thought he might get a bit more on that 25 million per year annually. And then Tamari Kamara, who I think we mentioned the other day, signed for 4 years, 82 million. Second team all defense last year. Has a ways to go offensively, but he's already proven he's elite defensively, and he signed for 20 million per year. So that's just to give you a ballpark figure. And I don't think this means neither of them will be on the team. I think, like I said, JD's here long term. Ivy is the one up for debate just because he hasn't been able to play with Cade a lot. Like I keep saying, he's only played 95 of 250 possible games with Cade throughout their career. So you just don't have the data to go out and throw a huge extension at Ivy. It would almost be like not... I don't want Trajan going and throwing a heap of money at players who still need to prove that they can be consistently a part of the winning team. And I think it's fair to say that a little bit for Ivy and Duren, both not for their own fault, but I think Ivy's is mainly due to injury, and then Duren's is, that motor and inconsistency hasn't always been there. But it was at the end of last season. So that's enough on that. Now I wanted to preview the Pistons game tonight against the Chicago Bulls, which I'm just so happy to have Pistons basketball back. I've just got done watching the opening night games with the Lakers, Warriors, Houston versus Thunder, and they were fun. But to have our boys back on TV tonight is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait. But I want to quickly preview the game because the Pistons have a couple of key outs, as you can see on the right here. Jaden Ivey out. We knew this. He's out for at least 4 to 5 weeks till he's reevaluated. Marcus Sasser is listed as doubtful, and he mentioned this on the broadcast against the Pistons' last preseason game. He's been dealing with some hip soreness, so I would say he's out. If doubtful tends to mean they're going to be out, especially the night before the game. Karis LeVert, probable. I would say he'll be a game time decision. But probable obviously is more than upgraded to game time decision. So hopefully he's right to play, because without Sasser and Ivy, the Pistons' ball handling has taken a huge hit, and they're going to be relying a lot on Cade no matter what. But Karis LeVert is the guy they brought in to take some of those duties and replace Dennis Schroeder, or a large part of what Dennis Schroeder brought. So I hope Karis can play and get out in the court. I like what I saw from him a little bit in that Wizards game in the small minutes he played. So hopefully he's right to go. The Pistons last year were 3-1 against the Bulls in the season series, and they lost the game early in the season in November. It was when Vooch killed them from behind the arc, and JD was struggling with his, defending a floor spacing big. He got better at that as the season went on, but Vooch just torched the Pistons. But after that game in November, the Pistons played the Bulls, I think, 3 times in February, and they had that back-to-back where one of the games they were up by like 40 points at halftime, and they were both beatdowns. And yeah, once the Pistons got right after around end of December and really hit their stride, the Bulls were no match. I want to mention, when you look at the Bulls, they're going to be without Zach Collins, who's their backup big, and a key out for them is Kobe White. He's been listed as out. He's a huge part of what they do. I would say he's probably their second or maybe their leading scorer on every other night behind Josh Giddey. Can get really hot from behind three. So without him, they take a huge hit to their scoring. The way the Bulls play is they're just going to jack up a lot of threes. They averaged the third most three-point attempts last season, and we're 13th in three-point percentage. So they jack them up, and they're not bad at hitting them. And they were very similar in the preseason, 10th in three-point percentage, three-point attempts in this preseason, but it was like 3 or 4 games. So I think they're going to jack them up again. Everything goes through Josh Giddey, to another extent, Vooch, and they've also got Matas Buzelis, who's an up-and-coming player. But I think the Pistons for Buzelis will be a tough night for him if his jumper's not falling, because I think Buzelis has a very high potential, but his frame, he's still very skinny, and I feel like the Pistons with Duren, Asar, Ron, Stu, just the size of the Pistons and the physicality, I think might bother him. But if he's shooting it well, then that might change how things go. So keep an eye on Buzelis. Giddey doesn't really worry me, to be honest. I know he shot the 3-ball decently last year, but I think if you just put Asar on him, or even Cade, I think you can minimize his impact. So I think, truthfully, the Pistons should, like, it's opening night. Anything can happen. The team's not going to be, just remember, like, I think the Pistons should win this game, and people should be disappointed if they don't. But just remember, it's opening night. These guys have only been in training camp for like 3 weeks. They've played a few preseason games together. Like, things are going to take a minute to gel. Like, it's important to remember the first 15 games of the year. Whilst you want to win as many, and this team has chemistry, and I think chemistry from last year will carry over. I just think as well, just especially for game 1, if things don't look perfect, don't freak out. But as long as the Pistons get a win, I'll be happy. I'm not too concerned about margins and that kind of thing this early in the season, but they should win, and we should be disappointed if they don't win. But I'm going to say the Pistons win by about 8 to 12 points. I think the Bulls put up a pretty good fight in their home opener, but I think for obvious reasons, talent and what the Pistons bring defensively, they will get the job done. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Just even if you want to just spam below some Let's Go Pistons. Pistons basketball's officially back, and we will be back to break down the game and any other news and headlines following what should be the Pistons' first win of the season. But thank you so much for watching, and as always, go Pistons.